Without doubts, I think it's by far the best league in the world.
How dare you score like that in the Premier League? Mission accomplished in the Premier League. The American.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Premier League Show. Week 2 is in the books, and it was quite the weekend. A lot of action, a lot of fights, some comedy, some drama. Premier League is definitely back. If you thought week 1 was kind of stale, week 2 definitely beat it big time. We will start first with match of the week, and it definitely gave us a lot of talking points. Our match of the week this week was Chelsea versus Tottenham. So, guys, honestly, as I was watching the game, I was seeing a lot of things that we would talk about on today's show when it comes to the football, soccer side of things. But the coaches kind of said, you know what? You think that's interesting? Watch this shit. And kind of like took the entire storyline away from what was being played. What do you make of that whole ordeal, Gally? I mean, obviously, it's entertaining, a little embarrassing, but entertaining again. What do you make of it?
All right, so full disclosure, in case it's anyone's first time viewing, I clearly love Antonio Conte. So I'm going to be on the side of the hot-blooded Italian. Shocking, right? But Tuchel just appears to be someone that is less like loathsome. And I'm sure that Conte is not like some fun guy to be around if you don't like his personality or he's not on your side. But I like to believe that if you liked, a fine Marlboro Light and a red wine and a couple F-bombs mixed in between both, like Conte would be the guy to hang out with on a Friday night. And I'm pretty sure Tuchel would be miserable at every minute of every day you were ever around the man. And I thought that they were just it was comedy for Tuchel. For Conte to claim that he was upset because of the antics of another manager is maybe the funniest thing in the entire world. But the idea that that thing popped off the way it did at the end, purely over Tuchel screaming, "You'll look me in the eye when you shake my hand," is like the most petulant thing ever. And I can see the little rat face saying it. The fact that Conte went to Instagram and actually said that he would have tripped Tuchel had he noticed. And afterwards, they asked him today, was that you or does someone run your social media? And he was like, I take credit for everything I say. Like, he was proud of it. Like, it's even better. And the fact that Tottenham and Chelsea played out the draw that they did was highly entertaining. And it's actually good the managers did what they did, because overall, outside of a couple flashpoints, the match really wasn't that good. The play on the pitch wasn't that good, but the managers were basically the best story we've probably had yet so far in the Premier League.
I thought like the tactical moves they were doing to offset each other and stuff like that was interesting. And I thought, would be talking points, but here we are talking about the managers, because that's funny you mentioned that, by the way. Yeah, Conte definitely sounds like the guy you would want to hang out, and he would tell you a lot of like crazy stories that happened to him. If you sit around with Tuchel, I almost like see him just giving you dirt on people. Like those would be the stories that guy would tell. But I mean, I was honestly shocked having seen the drama that happened before when it was 1-1, right? I was shocked when he was running across that he did not. I almost thought when I saw Tuchel running, Bickler, I'm like, oh, maybe the cameras are reversed. He's actually running towards the corner, like off his bench. When I realized he ran in front, first of all, I don't know how Conte didn't see him. Because even if Conte didn't see him, I can't see how his assistants did not react to like what he did, knowing what happened earlier, or maybe they didn't want to get Conte going. Are you shocked that he didn't get like a yellow card or something like that there, Bickler? I mean,
I am.
I know you would have loved to be in that scene right there.
I am. If I was Conte, I would have jacked his shit up if he came running across my touchline like that. I mean, the Premier League's not going to say this, right? But like, let's be honest, the Premier League needs more of this and less bar controversy, right? This is unbelievably entertaining. If let's go ahead and count the straight reds as 2 yellows, that'd be 6 yellows between the two of them in one match, which is just unbelievable drama. Yeah, it was petty. I'd take Conte in a bar fight probably. There is a part of me that greatly identifies with Tuchel as somebody who just absolutely hates everybody and everything. It's probably not a coincidence we're both divorced. So like I don't know. I loved it. I loved all of it. It was better than the football match for sure.
And the ending, like you're saying, Gally, was so freaking petty. Like, obviously they knew after all that drama, the camera was going to be on there. And that was the main focus of the game. Nobody cared about anything else at that point. It was just when they meet in the middle. And I thought Conte did what I would probably do as civil as I can be, like a half-ass handshake. And for Tuchel to make a bigger deal of it, you think there's like a thing behind that? Like he yanks him back because it almost looked like, Conte's arm got stuck in there. Yanks him back and tells him about that, making eye contact and stuff. I mean, let's face it. Sometimes it is. I mean, Tuchel kind of said like the game got the better of him or the intensity, blah, blah, blah. But some of these managers don't do things just to do things that are like stories behind it, or they want to get something more out of their team or send some kind of a message across. Is that kind of like looking too deep into these two guys being kids, or it was just like they're saying heat of the moment, they just freaking lost it? Which
I think it's heat of the moment. I think Tuchel had more to lose with 5 minutes to go in a lead. They had the lead twice. They were kind of in control of the match multiple times. And, Conte still has an awful lot of people at Chelsea that still love him, both supporters and folks that work there, even players. I mean, you saw Azpilicueta at the end go up to Conte and try to talk to him, and Conte's screaming at him, like pointing at the manager, almost saying like, go look at your manager, like talk to him type thing. Like, why is this happening?
Azpilicueta's like, yeah, I know, he's a dick.
I'm trying to get to Barcelona.
That's basically what it looked like. It really looked like he was trying to be like, what the hell just happened here? And Conte's like, I honestly, I don't know. I tried to end it, walk away. This guy went crazy. And I think I think Conte leaves there feeling like I got under that guy's skin. Like, we're the one trying to crash the party. We're trying to become the biggest club in London. And we're trying to let everyone know, you all think it's a 2-horse race. Like, I'm Antonio Conte. I'm a serial winner. This Spurs team is here. That Spursy thing? Spursy isn't getting game winners after being outplayed or, point saving headers in the 97th minute. That's not Spursy. That's how Antonio Conte's teams play. And if I were a United supporter, I'd probably be sick to my stomach. They turned down naming him manager twice. Oops.
And I think mainly they turn it down because of his personality, because he's not going to go about things like Ten Hag, like, making people run extra the next day or something like that. He's going to get in the press conference and God knows what he's going to say, not only about the players, but probably about the club. And that's mainly why they didn't want his personality and outspokenness. But if we go back to the field, what do we learn about these two teams, Bickler, in terms of like the title race and what they have going in terms of a squad?
Well, I don't know that we learned anything. Well, first of all, the thing that jumped out to me is that I genuinely thought Chelsea was going to get run off the pitch. Like, and I know that maybe that's not a popular opinion, but just based on form, that's what I thought. And so I was pleasantly surprised at how resolute and how well Chelsea defended. I thought they did a fairly good job versus a very tough offensive team in Tottenham. I mean, we've often talked about Kukrila, but he was better than I thought he'd be. I thought he was phenomenal in terms of Chelsea. And then for Tottenham, I thought we would see more fluency, especially through the mids. There was a very big disconnect between like Son, Kane, and the rest of that midfield, which I was a little bit surprised about. But I agree with what you said earlier in the fact that it was a game where there were a lot of very, very interesting things happening tactically. In a lot of very interesting almost like chess moves between the two managers. But the overall play on the field was just a little bit sloppy at times and disjointed in general. But yeah, it was a real chess match.
I think, Chelsea kind of showed. I mean, we saw Tottenham last week, right? And we know like the weapons they have. I think Chelsea kind of showed that if you crowd the midfield and if you harass them on the ball and their build-up play, if you don't give space to Tottenham, they're not the same attacking team. They need that countering. They need that space, like players like Son and Kane is going to distribute and stuff like that. If you harass them and if you're physical with them, I think you can disrupt them, especially in the first half. Saw a lot of that. Is that a concern to Tottenham, you think, Gally?
I think it has to be, and I think that's why they went out and bought additional midfielders. And let's be honest, we talked about Conte's strength. One of his strengths is he is loyal, sometimes to a fault. I mean, he's starting the same 11 that basically secured them Champions League and admitted it. That as time goes on, he'll move to Langlet in the back. He'll move to starting his 2 new wingbacks. I mean, the whole match changed, in my opinion, once Perisic came in. He offered a different type of an attack on the outside. The balls that he was dropping into the box, both on set plays and in live action, I think that changes things. And honestly, I think Bentancur played the worst match he's played for Tottenham since he moved. And I think that's what you saw. That and Højbjerg. And I think we know why they went out and got Basuma, right? Højbjerg does a really good job. He's industrious. He scores the goal. He works so hard. But Basuma offers speed, pace, and the ability to add a dimension that no one else in their midfield does. And I think as time goes on, we'll see a much better Tottenham team when I think Perisic is starting on one side, and Doherty is starting on the other in the wingback positions. And then I think there'll be more stability in the center of the pitch once Basuma is holding the number 6 role. But let's be honest, Son was mediocre, if not poor. You could argue Son being hooked first was not shocking because he was the worst player on the pitch. And I hold my nose to say this, but to Conte's credit, a guy who plays a back 3 and never changes his tactics when he need to, he reverted to a back 4. He threw on Richarlison, and it changed everything by playing with 4 attackers, and Chelsea wasn't actually equipped with the players on the pitch to combat it. And that's when Spurs looked like they were going to score and when they might actually even go on and win the match when it was still 1-1. So, I think that Conte was willing to kind of gamble a little bit and roll it with the dice. And I really think Richarlison being introduced changed their outlook. And it could be something that we see a lot more of with them playing with all 4 attackers, which could really sure up Kulusevski. And that's even scarier.
And that's the thing. I thought, their midfield was due to, how physical, how like in their face Chelsea was. But not a lot of teams have that kind of a midfield, Bickler, that can do that to Tottenham. Where does Richarlison fit? I mean, anybody who listens to our regular podcast or knows me or has listened to me can say that I can't stand the guy. And he has actually managed to look even more annoying and aggravating to me with his new haircut. But having said all that, what does he I just have to get that out of my system. But what does he bring there? And, how did they work him in? Because I hear what Gally's saying, but I feel like that could be a very risky business when you play that many attacking players and leave the back exposed.
I mean, I think Carlson gives them a lot of options. I mean, so if Kulusevski goes down or if they need to rotate him out and spell him, he can easily plug in there. I think he allows them to play with a 10 if they need to, in terms of taking a spot and then moving Son middle. I think he allows them late in games to go 4 up top if they need to and change it to almost like a 4-2-2-2, which I think we commonly see that with Leipzig, but I know Conte will throw that formation out there too. So, I mean, he's giving them 3 or 4 legitimate options, both from a starting position and from an off the bench position. And like we said, like this is not a player that you would ever want to, like, you hate him when he's on the other team, but if he's on your team, he's an absolute dog in the fight and you love that. So, I mean, gives him a lot of options. It's looking like a more and more solid pickup just from the versatility options that it gives them going throughout a match, depending on where the match is at, scoreline position, and from minutes on the clock.
And I think as much as, I can't stand him, it's kind of like speaks for Richarlison too to agree to go there and, say to everybody, I'm going to earn a spot here. I mean, he could have looked at that team and be like, where the hell am I going to play? Or, I can't, Son is not going anywhere. Kane is not going anywhere kind of thing. And you saw how Kulusevski was last year. So I guess credit to him in that sense. As I hate this, just literally hurts saying this. But anyway, let's go with that. So let me ask you, Gally, obviously, aside from the drama, part of the drama was created by some of the referee decisions. What do you make of that refereeing? I mean, a couple of things come to mind. The Kukrila incident. I mean, as a guy who does not have as much hair anymore, I felt, the dude's hair is connected to his head. So when you yank a guy like that, how is it not any different than just grabbing his head and throwing him on the ground?
So I've seen players get grabbed just as much by their head and thrown to the ground on corners and not see red cards given. Both players start the play grabbing jerseys, and that's clear. Both guys are pulling at each other's jerseys. Yeah. I don't actually think that Romero goes to grab a whole head of lettuce and literally yank it out. I think he is hanging grappling jerseys, pulls up. I do think he gets a whole head of hair, and I think he pulls back. I think sending a guy off in that spot for a red card would have been a pretty petty look. I'll be honest. I had no problem with them not giving red there. Anthony Taylor's response was VAR couldn't prove that it was malicious and on purpose and that the guy wasn't literally grappling with the jersey and just got a bunch of hair. And part of it is the hair's part of the uniform. And that is actually stated in the bylaws, in the rules. And the reason is it's like the old NFL thing. If you go to reach for something and you grab it and you get it, you can't be blamed for it. And I think they kind of chopped it up that it was accidental pulling. And they weren't going to say that it was malicious and automatic. And I'm fine with it because honestly, he looks like an idiot. And if you're going to run around with that puff of hair and you're grappling at each other's jerseys, the only difference was he grabbed the back of Romero's jersey like this, and Romero grabbed the exact same spot and got a whole heck of a lot of man hair. That's the only difference.
See, here's my thing with that. I understand what you're saying. First of all, a lot of hair hating going on tonight between Richarlison and now Kukrila. But here's the thing. As a guy who plays center back and has pulled all kinds of freaking jerseys, amongst other things, I mean, when you grab a jersey, you know the difference between the jersey and hair. And if you grab somebody's jersey like that to the point where you pull them back and throw them on the ground, it's a freaking penalty. So that, I guess, is my thing. I understand what you're saying. It's the same spot, happens to be his hair instead. But if he grabs his jersey that hard and flings him over, literally flip the guy over, I think that then it's a penalty. Even if it's not a red card, then it should be a penalty. That's the part that I was like, I mean, this is something this is not regular football play.
But they kind of made it out like he kind of embellished it too, that he kind of threw himself to the ground when he realized, for me, if Romero pulled him as hard as it looked on television, I think he would have taken the entire ponytail off. He'd be holding it like Mortal Kombat style, just finish him on the penalty spot
like that. So at least we know that's Kukrila's real hair, because any other time that shit is coming off.
Oh yeah. Oh, Conte, that Lego helmet would have been flying off. That thing would be in the third row if that was Conte.
What do you make of it, Bickler, as an ex-striker over here?
Yeah, I'll straddle the line. I think, for me, it's it takes a lot for anything they call in the box on those set pieces for me. I mean, I think we've all been in there, and there's a lot of junk that goes down in there. Oh, yeah. And so the penalty box on a free kick feels a lot like the Wild West, right? I mean, I think a lot has to go wrong for things they get called. For me, in the match at this magnitude, as physical as this match was with both of them grappling, it's for me, if you don't call that foul, if you don't call that spot kick and it goes the other way for Brighton, it's nothing. I don't think you can retroactively go back and card that. I just think you're either calling that as a spot kick. For me, it's not a straight red. I think you're either calling that a spot kick or you're just rolling with it and letting it go. To me, I had a lot of respect for the fact that Kukrila, when they went to do the VAR rule, Kukrila did not make a big deal of it. He was not asking for a card. He was not like, I thought that was a big play for him. I mean, I can't say that I wouldn't have done the same because I would have wanted to win more, but like I had a lot of respect for him not making more of it than it was. I thought that was pretty cool.
Honestly, I would have wanted him to stay out there because that's when you take the other guy's license plate number and just wait for your opportunity to kind of like, get it back. So looking at this game, gentlemen, as we wrap up the match of the week talk over here, Bickler, let's start with you on this one. This game, I realize it's only week 2, but still for shits and giggles, did it change your opinion of where these guys would end up? These teams will end up at the end of the season, having seen this game?
No, season's too long and it's a draw. So no, but I will say it tells me that Chelsea may not be as poorly off as I originally thought.
How about you, Gally?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with overall Chelsea's response and overall play. I think Koulibaly looks to be a real mountain of a defender, and if you're scoring half volleys like that on your debut, it's a good sign for Chelsea. And I think that with Spurs, I think Spurs are what I kind of thought they were, which was a much improved side with a much better manager and a better mentality. But if Harry Kane doesn't start playing like Harry Kane, then they won't reach the ambitions that they want to reach. Because, we talked about where's Richarlison fit in. At some point, Richarlison will fit into playing right through the middle because he might offer the best chance of scoring a goal. Because I know Kane hits that header in, but that was an own goal, and it looked like it was going wide of the post, in my opinion. And he was anonymous all match long, including one-on-one with a keeper in a situation he'd never miss. And he's starting to kind of show his age. And I think at some point, you might question whether or not Kane the playmaker is better than Kane the striker. And they're going to mightily need Kane the striker if they want to reach the heights they want to reach.
I think gives them the ability to kind of play the player that suits the game. Richarlison gives you a lot better work rates, but doesn't give you Kane's distribution and passing, and especially long range passing with Son and Kulusevski that he does. So it definitely gives them options. And like I say, they have a good manager who can kind of take care of those options. The Conte injury, which is kind of like an ongoing deal for him, I think that it will be interesting to see what happens with De Jong this week. I did not hear anything in the news today, but honestly, when the Conte injury happened, that was the first thing I thought of. I'm like, well, we might hear that on Monday now, completing that deal from Barcelona or something like that. But gives Gallagher a chance and, to show, see if he can duplicate what he did when he was away. But yeah, I feel like I still think Chelsea has the team that can win the tough games, whereas I can see Spurs struggle in some games and lose a lot more points. So I think that's kind of like what I took away from that Chelsea is going to be a difficult team to lose games, whereas Spurs, you can kind of catch them. You can make their playing style a lot more difficult and they get affected by that physicality a lot more. But early going, so obviously a lot can change in that route. So let's go around and do the studs of the week. Gally, let's start with you on this one. Who was your stud of week 2?
Oh, one of your all-time favorites, Timucin.
Yeah, well.
Gabriel Jesus himself. With a performance like that. And honestly, the 2 goals, 2 assists, and it might not have even it honestly doesn't even paint a picture of how dominant he was. His underlying stats were even better. The first goal is just absolutely audacious with the little back flip, and he just keeps it over the keeper. It is a finisher's finish, right? At the highest level of confidence, which is kind of crazy for a guy who showed up in week 1 and blanked and didn't get off the mark. And people were saying, he went to City and he had a great start, and then he has a preseason, and now he's just same old Gabriel Jesus, all work, no finish. His end product was outstanding. Both of his goals, the second one, the header off of the corner, right place, right time. And then his 2 assists are just as good. And right before the end of the match, he had a chance to, it was like a little tap-in sitter for his hat trick. I was shocked he missed it. But he looks like a guy full of confidence. the Emirates looks like they're ready to embrace him. And, you know, as long as Arteta plays through him, I just see that this being a really good fit for him as long as he can stay fit and healthy. He's my start of the week.
Even though I can't stand him, I will forgive him because I had him in fantasy this week. So he was the bare bright spot in that loser of a team. Bickler, who was your start of the week?
Yeah, since we're talking about our favorite players on our fantasy team, I will just go with Ivan Toney. Who would have thought that Brentford would go in, blow the doors off United, score 4 goals, and none of them would be scored by Ivan Toney? But I will say that, like, what he did, like, I think I just, the more I watch this dude, the more I love him in terms of just like his work rate, what he does off the ball, like that pass for the 4th goal. Like, that goal is not going to get talked about enough this year. It's like 1 lump off a corner, 2 passes up the field, 2 world-class passes, and a world-class finish. And I just thought Toney was kind of at the heart of everything good they did. I think he is like a prolific scorer who feels just as comfortable dropping deeper and making that space and distributing, which I love and I thought was phenomenal.
Yeah, it definitely was like a fun game to watch in a couple of ways that we'll probably talk about later in the show. But yeah, I'm glad Gally took Jesus because it would be really painful for me to make him start of the week. I will go with Henderson. I thought it was kind of ironic that he played the way he did. I mean, made some huge saves. I know the penalty is weak, but I think it's ironic that he did it the day after they had those, howlers back to back. And this is the guy who complained about having to sit behind and not getting his opportunities and stuff like that. I mean, whether he's right, wrong, who knows, who cares? I almost felt like that might have been something extra in him to give that performance. And if they got a clean sheet, really, Henderson is a key part of that because he did make some ridiculous saves, including the penalty. He freaking caught the penalty. I know it's like a very poorly taken penalty, but aside from the penalty, some great saves that, for me, makes him the stud of the week. So next up, we have dud of the week. I mean, we normally try to not overlap too much, but God knows this is going to be hard. We had to probably fight over it in the production meeting earlier in terms of who gets what. But Gally, let's start with you. Dud of the week, and then we'll just pile on.
Well, it's hard to avoid the, and I don't want to take anything away from Brentford, who I thought were absolutely outstanding and set up to actually attack a weakened Man United side. But I'm going to start with the guy who set up the weekend Man United side. I'm going to start with the dud of the week in Ten Hag. And I'm not saying that Ten Hag is going to be a failure. I'm not saying that United shouldn't question whether or not they might have the right guy because they're going to have to give him time. But for all the excitement after, a couple preseason results, for all the culture and work ethic to see the way this man has handled basically 2 full matches as manager of United would make me have pause and reservation about whether or not he is the guy. From benching Ronaldo and then bringing him in the second half to starting Eriksen through the false 9 just so you can keep Rashford on the left, to then playing Eriksen so deep, and then lastly yanking Lisandro Martinez at halftime, basically making him the scapegoat of your 4-0 loss after you just spent 60 million on the 5'9" center back. And De Gea is clearly screaming at him for missing out on the Ben Mee. And let's be honest, the Ben Mee thing is just going to be a meme forever because somehow he lost a header to a guy sitting down. Literally. He lost a header to a guy sitting down. And I just don't know how you respond to that. And your manager does you no favors. And then on top of it, I mentioned it earlier in our pre-production when I decided I was going to rail on Ten Hag. The Donny van de Beek, the only player to start every one of United's preseason friendlies was Donny van de Beek. The kid must have thought he woke up and was getting his shot at showing everyone what he was worth. And he comes on in the 80th minute as the 5th substitute in a 4-0 drubbing. Like, you could have brought in the ball boy and the ball boy would have been more excited to get in for those last 10 minutes than Donny van de Beek. So Erik ten Hag, you are my dud of the week, purely because, well, everything you've decided to do has failed.
Speaking of ball boys and duds, I mean, this could have been another one too. I don't know if you guys caught this, because I caught it during the game and I was like, was that a ball boy? And he happens to wear the same color as United, but I think it was Elanga. I don't know who the player was initially, but I saw a tweet today where the ball goes out of bounds and Elanga gives the ball back right away so they can keep it so fast. And when it happened, as I was watching the game, I was like, is the ball boy wearing like line too? So he kind of pops on the sideline. Normally it's like a vest or something, you know? And I was like, what is, I mean, this is kind of like how out of tune I like, he's like, let's go, come on, let's get 5. Like, who does that? Yeah, it was, I could have made him better than me, but there's so many options in that game. Bickler, who is your dud?
So maybe not out of left field, but I feel like this is a little outside the box. I'm going Declan Rice. I mean, because I know he doesn't set his valuation, right? He doesn't set what West Ham are asking for him. But do we even talk about this guy if he's still Irish, if he's still flying the Irish flag and he doesn't have the English? I'm serious. If he wasn't an English national, would we even be talking about Declan Rice? I don't know that we would. And, you know, he's taken 3 pens, missed the last 2. And that is about the most telegraphed penalty that I've ever, like, I mean, that's shit you work out in like junior high level in the States. And that's saying something. Like when they teach you about where you put your hips when you approach a ball, like it was just like you knew where he was going from 40 yards away. You could have been in the like far stand and been like, he's going left. Like, and I don't think his overall game was was really an improvement on the penalty shot. To be quite honest, I thought he was pretty much a non-factor in a game that he should have been bossing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely they wouldn't have the same price tag if he wasn't English, that's for sure. So my dud of the week, I guess I will go with the obvious is De Gea. I mean, that was, and honestly, I think he's a great goalie. I know he's kind of like, you know, curving down in his career maybe, but I mean, you look at last season, he has saved United a ton of games and he kind of gets overlooked because then he has one of these games where he has like a howler and everybody is like, oh, you know, it's the problem. I think the biggest problem is he's not more of like the modern goalkeeper where he is good with his feet and can build from the back. So the second goal, I don't know, you give that to him or you go back to Galleys and give it to Ten Hag and say, you're making a goalie who's clearly not good with the ball on his feet, try to build up play despite, you know, knowing that's not his strength. But the first goal, obviously, I don't even know what that was. He almost like tried to clap the ball. Like he wasn't even like put his body in front of it. I can understand sometimes, you know, kind of like squeeze it under your arm, but it wasn't even like that. I don't even know what that was. It just like
Tim Howard explained it as the wrong handshake, which, you know, explains it all.
And yeah, that's why he is my dud of the week. Mind you, Elanga was a close second with that, giving the ball for the throw-in. But I figured like a lot of people would have missed that. And I saw a tweet to that. I was like, okay, so I wasn't imagining things when I was watching the game. But I will save young Elanga and give it to the experience there as the dud of the week for me in week 2. So the shocker of the week, not a lot of, I guess, shocking results overall, I would say, but let's see what you guys think. Bickler, let's start with you on this one. What shocked you?
Oh, there's a couple from a result standpoint. I think we'll talk United, right? I mean, that was probably 4-0. It's hard to ignore that. I was actually shocked that West Ham looks completely lost on a team that I was so bullish going into this year, and felt like they were headed in the direction to be a real sort of dark horse in the top 4 at their best. They just don't look anywhere near what they did last year. And I think most alarmingly, Jared Bowen looks really disconnected. So yeah, worried about West Ham. Hats off to Nottingham Forest. But I think the most shocking thing is not only that result, but the way that West Ham looked during that result.
Yeah, that's Oh, like, what do you think about that, Gally? Because it reminded me a lot as I was watching that game. It reminded me of our boys playing in week one against Fulham. Same scenario, new team. And especially in like Forest, they have a lot of history to go with it as well. Back in the Premier League, the place is nuts, and obviously Forest is definitely up for it. And it looked like West Ham could not match that intensity, and even their difference in class, because I agree. I mean, we put them in the like contention for top four and stuff like that. I think it's a much better team, but when they didn't match that intensity, the skill gap was not enough to kind of like get them through.
Yeah, so first I'm with you. I'm gonna give full credit to the Forest supporters. I mean, they came out and forced that. That's why people should watch the Premier League. Like, get up early on Saturday morning or Sunday morning and have your kids watch it, because you see like a different atmosphere than watching, American sports on television. Because you understand what it means to these people. Because there were literally people in the crowd that weren't born the last time Forest played a top flight match. So for me, they deserve an awful lot of credit. I think the match could go eerily different if Ben Rama is allowed to celebrate his slotted home, well taken first half finish, and Antonio doesn't, literally just run a player over for no reason and just bury him over and have that goal chalked off, the first half goal that was taken off the board. I think that Forest needed to get on the front foot, and they did. I do think West Ham looks off at the races. Again, they're, battling some injuries at the back. And I do think that Bowen looks off. They look much better as soon as they bring the striker in each time. So I have this feeling that it's not going to be long before Antonio is back to being more of a reserve and role player for that side. Because I think Skamaka is going to be the point forward that they use. And I think it's going to change. And I think then we might see Bowen get back to his best.
Well, at least we know if Antonio does get cuts, he can be like a tight end or like an offensive lineman or something like that. Because I thought that was a pretty darn impressive block that would fetch some money in the NFL. The way he plumbed the guy off down and just kept going like he wasn't even there. So I thought that was pretty impressive. But yeah, he did cost that goal, and that game could have turned. But definitely Forest supporters and that atmosphere was definitely amazing to watch. What was your shocker this week, Gally?
My shocker is actually today's result. I think Liverpool dropping points at home to Crystal Palace, a team that struggled to create opportunities last week against Arsenal. I know that there's injuries. I know that Liverpool's decimated right now. But I think that even with the side that they put out there today, they had enough to win the match. And they didn't, for various reasons. The Nunez red, Phillips's kind of blunder in the trying to kind of trick the official into the high line. He tricked everyone but himself, and the quicksand that he was stuck in, that was not tricked. But and I just think that it has to be a shocker. I think for Liverpool to come out, and we'll get to United, and they are a dumpster fire. But let's be real. If United gets a point or squeaks out a win against Brighton somehow and plays terribly, all the talk right now is about Liverpool starting this campaign with 2 draws, one against a promoted team and one against a toothless Palace team that wasn't even at the races or playing their best football. So for me, the shock is not just the result, but the way in which Liverpool played 2 weeks in a row. It was better, but it still wasn't good enough. And for someone who has ambitions to win everything, that was really shocking for me.
Yeah, I think the performance was definitely better compared to week one. But yeah, I mean, you're right. If it wasn't for United and maybe Everton, even though Everton's expectations probably weren't that high. If it wasn't for United's, Liverpool might be thanking United for the mess they're in, which makes maybe shouldn't be the shocker of the week for me. I think the shocking part was more how it's unfolded. I understand the first goal is a howler, and shit happens, but I'm more shocked by how fragile that team is and the fact that nothing has changed. You were talking about this earlier in the show, Gally, like with Ten Hag coming in, who was your dud of the week. Nothing has changed in terms of like their attitude, how they approach it. obviously, I don't know how much of it to put on Ten Hag, how much of it to put on the situation that he came into. I mean, what do you make of that, Bickler? Is it just more? Sometimes coaches have this arrogance about him, like saying, like, "Oh, Rashford and stuff, I'll get them playing, I'll get them running. Sancho, oh, he'll be like a defensive beast once I get there, and a couple of practice sessions, those guys will get going." And kind of like dismiss what the managers before did. But sometimes there is a reason why it feels like the players have always been the same players and like a revolving door on managers over there.
Yeah, I mean, I think my main takeaway is that this is a 3 to 4 year project. And the question is Manchester United smart enough to understand that? I don't think they are. I think that they're going to want somebody to come in and they expect like them to start climbing right back up the table and shooting back into the top 4 within a couple months. I think there is rot at the core of every single level of that club, right up to the leaky roof. Like, and I think it's got to be gutted. Like, you can sit there and like they can blame the Glazers, and that's fine. I think the Glazers have definitely done some very bad things to that club, especially financially, in terms of the way they acquired the money and things that really put them in a bad spot. But at the end of the day, the players are out on that pitch, and that's not good enough from them. And it hasn't been for a long time. And I think there really needs to be a stripping down of that club at every single level. And I think it's going to take a while for Ten Hag to weed that out and get the guys in that he wants. I don't know if they'll give him that amount of time. And that's a good thing for everybody else because I don't think it matters who the manager is. I don't think it matters who the manager is. It's going to be, I mean, they're at where we were. They're in a worse position, in my opinion, both financially and as a team than we were when we brought Jurgen in. And we know what a long, slow burn that was to build that thing back up. And I don't think Ten Hag is anywhere near the master that Jurgen Klopp is at culture. And I think that's what it is. I think it's a cultural issue. I think it's a financial issue. And I think it's a quality issue. And it's going to take time.
I know, like, obviously, Glazers get a lot of this. And it's funny because as we were watching that this weekend, and, there were, like, signs and banners and stuff, my wife was like, what are they going to, like, Glazers? And, as I explained it, it's not that they haven't spent the money, but they've put the club in, like, shady financial situations for their gain. And obviously the whole depth thing and stuff like that. They've spent the money, but not very wisely. They've gotten managers, and I think that's like the biggest thing for me. When they've gotten managers who will kind of go with the game plan. They didn't bring a Conte over. They brought Ole, and they brought, Ten Hag, guys who are going to still, make the players run an extra 8 miles or do, push-ups or just go after the players. And that's maybe be as vocal against ownership and saying, hey, we need this, we need that. They're just going to be like, no, this is good. I just need more time with these players. I mean, Ten Hag has to know by now, at least, that, oh my God, this is a shit show. We're going to have to start from zero.
Yeah, I mean, he has to have known that he needs 6 or 8 players. And so far, they got him a left back of the future, a midfielder who he's playing in a defensive role that is too weak to shoo off of, another defensive midfielder in his own box. As bad as that ball De Gea plays, if that ball goes to Fabinho, he probably can strengthen and not lose the ball to Jansen in that spot and create the goal. I mean, Eriksen just gets brushed off. It's like, it's me. You know why? He's my size. And it's just poor man management. All that being said, I think Ten Hag's biggest issue is that he wants to be his own man, and he's going to get pigeoned into all the problems of the prior managers. We say they haven't hired anyone with a voice. Louis van Gaal has been one of the most outspoken and tough men to work for as long as he's been in world football. Mourinho was no, wallflower. He was a little bit reserved at United, but he was still boisterous and talked about what they needed and where they were. To Paul's point earlier, I think they were in a better position under Ole at that moment, coming off the big win against PSG, building on that Champions League run, I think they're in a better position building around Rashford and Bruno Fernandes under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer during that year. They're closer at that point than we were 2 or 3 years into Klopp to getting back to winning. And they were kind of proving it on the pitch. And I think whether we agreed with the culture was getting better. They were a player or two away. They just brought in the absolute worst player you could ever bring in, Ronaldo. And it literally was like out of the old Looney Tunes. Like they hit the TNT and the whole entire place exploded. And like the only thing left was like Bugs Bunny laughing at the, credits. And that's Ole, like literally still laughing at them right now, probably cashing a big ass check. Talking so high in a voice I can't understand.
That's the thing for a team that needs more of a clean slate, more of a like a rebuild. I know they do not want to make a rebuild, right? Like they do not want to, but they keep bringing these players like Pogba, which is like a transfer disaster by itself. The money spent on him to bring him back and then just lose him on a free again. And then Ronaldo move, which has not really paid off for both sides. And why do they still insist on that? Is it just, are they, because basically the criticism they get is the Glazers, for most of the fans, is they're all about the money, they're all about the jersey sales and the social media, the clicks and the links and stuff like that. And obviously Ronaldo helps all those. But aside from that, why insist on a guy who wants to leave? They presented like, and we don't know if this is true, that Ten Hag keeps saying, no, he's in my plans, I want him. Why would Ten Hag try to start his new build-up with a guy who's about to retire and is only getting worse by the day? Why start that as a building block? I guess his professionalism could be one thing, but he's not the kind of guy that's going to take young kids under his wing. He's going to be like, are we winning or not? Because I'm freaking retiring, damn it. We got to win shit now. Time is running out. So why did they insist on him, Bickler?
None of that makes any sense to me at all. And I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. The biggest thing on the Glazers, like for me, is the way they've run their finances for that club. The second biggest thing is that they haven't provided structure for that organization. They haven't appointed a sporting director like they've talked about forever, which would eliminate a lot of these things that have consistently happened in the transfer market. They've allowed Sir Alex Ferguson to loom over that club like the ghost of Christmas past, and basically have his nose in just about everything up until recently. And I think that they've just swung and consistently missed because they don't analyze the market right. They don't understand current value trends on that point, and they don't have a clear plan for the future. You can't look they're exposed now because in the past they could overpay players to get in there, and they can't do it now. The money's not enough anymore for people. They've tanked the culture and they've tanked the actual club to the point where it's not attractive no matter what the paycheck is. And that's a scary spot for them. That's got to be a very scary spot for them, because now what do you do? They've just got to get a sporting director at some point. But who knows where Ten Hag lands on that? Does he want one? Is he going to work with that? It's an absolute dumpster fire of disorganization. And if they weren't sort of a hated rival of the team I support, I would feel a little bit bad for their supporters, but I don't. So.
Yeah, I don't. And one of them is my freaking brother, for God's sakes. So as a Liverpool fan, obviously watching, not that we've started great, I guess, to the season, but watching United's and Everton misery kind of eases the pain in some ways, I guess, let's say. When you look at those two situations, they're on the bottom three with West Ham, and who knew that, I realize it's only week 2, but that will be your bottom 3 in the league. Which one do you think is in a worse situation right now, Gally? Everton or United, looking long term? Which one will have an actual relegation type battle similar to what Everton did last year?
If Everton doesn't find someone who can semblance play as a striker, they won't score a goal this calendar year. They won't score a goal. They were so toothless in that match against Villa, and Villa did everything they could late in the match. And Everton still couldn't get shots on frame with clear, balls falling right to them in the box. So I think Everton's in real trouble, primarily not just because of the talent on the pitch, the financial situation of the board, but they don't have a manager who can help them navigate out of it. We joked last year. I felt like they stayed up in spite of Frank Lampard last year. If you look at some of the results they got, I mean, even the win against Arsenal when Rafa was still in charge with the 2 goals in stoppage time, the winner at Stamford Bridge to actually beat Chelsea, 1-0 in the second half of the year. Everton had some huge results just to squeak it out. And I don't know that they have those results because they've lost arguably their best player. And it's not even arguably. They lost their best player, even if he's a thug. And on top of it, they're putting more faith in a player who might have had read too much of his own press clippings and is hearing about transfers that he's up for. Because if they think Anthony Gordon is keeping them up in the Premier League, they got another thing coming. He's a nice little player, but that's a young kid on a wing. He's not keeping a club of Everton size up in the Premier League. They might be in real, real trouble.
Because I hear both ways for both kind of opinions from Everton fans. A group that's like you, Gally, feels like, it was no thanks to Lampard that they ended up staying up. And another group who feel that, Lampard deserves more time just based on what he did last year and saving their season and stuff like that. I pose this question to Mecca in the morning where we do the morning coffee, or in Mecca's case, tea or moonshine or gin, whatever he feels like that morning is what he drinks. Kind of like having a morning with Bickler, pretty much same concept. But, we were talking about this, and I want to ask you the same question, Bickler. I mean, you look at the schedule now, they play against Nottingham Forest at home. Afterwards, they're going to Brentford, then Leeds, and then they go into a really tough stretch, really. They play Liverpool, they go to Arsenal, they have West Ham at home. I know they have not looked good, but that's basically brings you to September 17. And then, we have that mini gap over there till the October 1st game. I think they're at Southampton. If they have only 4 points at that stage, does Lampard keep his job? Because it's very possible.
Doing good to be getting 4 points out of that. I mean, suppose anything can happen at Leeds. Yeah, I can't, dude. They're in a bad spot. Gally laid it out, and I was thinking about it. I was like, oh shit! You don't remember those big results. I didn't remember the winner versus Chelsea and the versus Arsenal, and you can't see them doing.
At how many points they will need. I mean, similar to what I guess blurted out the schedule to you. We were looking at that schedule. We were like, no way, no way. And some of those no way games, they did turn into 3 points. And even then, like Gallant says, they squeaked it in.
God, that almost makes me feel better about the Palace match today. I'll tell you that.
Well, there's always looking at others' miseries is kind of therapy.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's the beauty of having a club that you can just kick down the street like your little brother. You can just kick them when you're down. You come home on a bad Friday night and you had a terrible basketball game and you play terrible, and you just you know that the best thing is at least you can beat your brother's ass or something. There's still something good, and I think in some ways kicking Everton is literally one of those things. It's it's basically like having a brother.
Well, thank God.
Well, in a nice way.
Brother is a United.
Well, in a nice way. I don't want to get. I don't want to get lumped in with I don't want to get lumped in with Kurt Zuma. You know what I mean?
No, not kick the cat. I didn't say kick the cat. I said kick your little brother.
Just your brother.
In a
positive, not the cat, just your brother.
but in that, we still want you in the Premier League. We don't want you relegated, but we want to kick you down to 17th and make fun of you.
Do you have a little sibling, by the way?
No, I was the little sibling, you asshole.
Okay. So that basically is the shocker of the week. that Gally didn't have somebody to kick around in the house. Thank God the worst habit my brother has is being a United fan. He wasn't kicking me around the house when United was bad or anything like that. So, but yeah, it will be interesting to see moving forwards. I mean, when I look at that schedule, like I say, I pose the same question to Maka too, it's kind of scary. And I feel like, Ten Hag, we talk about him. I feel like he has time. That's not a concern for him, the 7-8 weeks and stuff like that. They know he walked into a mess. I don't know how much longer, but definitely more than like October. Whereas Lampard, I think, is not in the same scenario. So that will be definitely interesting to see. Well, that's it for us this week. Tune in next week where our match of the week is going to be Manchester United versus Liverpool. Two teams that are struggling, one worse than the other, but definitely both struggling going into the season like we talked about during the show. Do not forget to subscribe to our show, get all the clips, all the information, as well as like fantasy football, you name it, we got it. Just go to the channel, American Scouts are on YouTube. Give us a subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week.